Hey, good morning, friends. Today, my friends, is Friday, November the 21st, 2025, and the time now is 7:45 a.m. So, friends, I want to talk about Benin, the West African country or nation of Benin. And I want to talk specifically about something that happened recently. And this pertains to some constitutional changes that was made or that were made. Friends, recently the Parliament of Benin made a change to the constitution. One being that the term of the president is being extended to 7 years. Currently, the presidents of Benin, their terms in office is just 5 years. The change that have been made that are going to be going into effect next year, this means that the president of Benin, as of this change, will be serving a 7 year term in office. Or in this case, we can say 2 7 years term in office. Now, in addition to extending the term of the president, the Parliament of Benin also approved the establishment of a legislative body. Now, for the legislative body, it is said that it will be occupied by former presidents and other important leaders in the country. In this case, many of them will be appointed by the president of Benin. Now, this is an interesting thing, and I've heard some mixed feelings or mixed opinions about it. Now, friends, one thing that I want to stress is that this change to the Constitution of Benin is seem to be different from other things, other changes that have occurred throughout Africa and around the world, where a president who is radical and foolish enough will basically suspend a constitution or squash a constitution and rewrite the constitution all over again. Which it is something that African countries or any country in the global south should not follow. Government or president should not be in the business of suspending constitution. As the president of a country, you are not above the law. And countries in Africa needs to begin to emphasize, the people in the various countries need to begin to emphasize the fact that we do not want absolute presidency or presidencies. So, for that matter, I'm glad that the Parliament of Benin did not squash the constitution altogether, or at least it seems, or perhaps I do not have enough information. However, as of now, from what I'm getting, it seems that the Parliament of Benin only changed, okay, among other things, the term of the president, basically extending the presidential term from 5 years to 7 years. And that is also the case for those members in the parliament or in the legislative body. All of them will have a 5 year to 7 year office time. So that is interesting. However, we need to compare this to a prominent country in the world, the United States, which its presidents and officials in the Congress do have 2 to 4 years or to 8 years. For the president in the United States, they do have 2 4 years terms in office. Now, many countries around the world have basically looked up to the United States as the model. Honestly, I do believe for American presidents and officials serving about 4 years in office for the president or 2 to 4 years in office for members of the legislative body, I think it is a bad thing because it is so much of a short time for the United States. One problem that America has, it is that American leaders, American officials, they are spending so much time in winning the next election than focusing on the job that the people sent them to do. In fact, my own country, Liberia, we do have six, okay, 6 years in office. At least that's what I know it to be. So perhaps Liberia could have made some changes. I don't recall as of recent times. But from what I know, from where I stand, the leaders of Liberia do have two consecutive years in office of 6 years. This is given that they win the election. And Now, for Benin, I believe extending the term of the president or other members of the government from 5 years to 7 years, I think it is much of a stretch. As much as 4 years in office for American officials is too short, and it basically leads them to focus more on winning the next election and to do the people's business. Extending Benin's officials' term in office from 5 years to 7 years, I think it is too much. It is too long. I think officials in any country should not be serving 7 years in office. 5 year, I think it is better. My friends, honestly, as people in the world today, as a citizen of the world or of the various countries in the world, I believe many of us can argue that even 6 years in office for a president or any government official in any country around the world, it is too long, let alone 7 years. I think honestly, having the president in Benin and the various officials in Benin to serve a 7 year term, it is too much. It is, I believe, an equivalent to having a dictator in office who is above the law. And it is so long of a time or term in office that should a president or a legislative body become so radical and foolish enough and corrupt enough, where just being corrupt enough, they are at the beginning of a term and they have to ride it out for another 7 years, I think it is a problem for the country, Benin. Honestly, friends, I do share the opinions of many in Benin and many around the world who believe that as much as Benin as a country has its right to make changes to its constitution, and it is a good thing, I think perhaps extending the presidential term from 5 years to 7 years is too much, is much of a stretch. And I believe that they could have done better. Now, friends, if you're watching my video for the first time or if you're new to this channel, I want you to know that on this channel, The Echoing Voice, every prominent institution in the world, such as the African Union, NATO, the European Union, BRICS, does have at least one playlist on this channel. However, every country in the world has at least two playlists on this channel. One is named the country's name and the other domestic the country's name. And this is how it works. The country's name playlist will feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas that focus specifically on the country's geopolitical position, perspective, and or its interaction with other countries and institutions in its region and around the world. In this case, we are talking about Benin. Therefore, the Benin playlist will feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas about Benin's interaction with other countries in West Africa, Africa, and around the world. However, my friends, the domestic the country's name playlist will feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas that pertain to the country's domestic situation, such as food security, domestic security, infrastructure, youth employment or unemployment, education, health and human resources, and so on and so on and so on. Which means that the domestic Benin playlist will feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas about the various things going on in Benin. Food, security, domestic security, internal security, agriculture, education, human resources, youth employment or unemployment, health, and so on and so on and so on. Now, friends, please tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. However, friends, I am going to end here. I want to thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community, my friends. But most especially and most importantly, all most important friends, I want to thank you a lot for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace, my friends. Peace.